What's up, everybody? Once again, it is I, James, coming to you from the Nerdy Mewzings podcast studio. I am here today having a surreal experience. I almost feel like I'm on the InkPulp podcast because I am collecting the InkPulp final boss today. Mr. Shawn Crystal is with me. What's up, Shawn?
Am I the final boss?
You're the final boss.
That's
I know
cool.
everybody might think Eric might be the final boss, but
he's
yeah,
he's
no,
the boss you get to. You're like, if I beat this guy, I win the game, and then you find out there's another boss behind him.
he's bossy.
Yeah,
He's
right,
bossy.
right, right, right.
No, it's funny because when I started the podcast, one of my main goals was to get my old boss, even though he won't remember it, Mr. Todd McFarlane on. But now it became I got to collect all the ink pulp guys.
So if you've had, I know you've had Matteo. You've had
I've
everyone
had
else.
I've had Jim,
Nice.
Eric, Matteo, and now I've got you. So is there anybody I'm missing? Like I could get your editor
Yeah.
on, your
Well,
editing guy, Jamie.
yeah. So Jamie, this week, I gotta make it I made an announcement on Inkfoot Live, but we promoted Jamie to producer. So he is
Oh, awesome.
in charge of the entire channel now of both shows, scheduling, all the nitty-gritty stuff.
See,
So
I need to find a Jamie.
yeah,
It starts to become a lot.
it is. And I mean,
Yeah.
look, I always recommend Jamie to whoever is interested. Like, he'll tell you when his plate is full. That is not my job. But if you need
Right.
Jamie, reach out. He
Yeah,
does an
for
amazing
sure.
job.
Yeah, he really does. And it's been cool seeing him get on every now and again and interact when you guys are doing the lives and everything. Does he
Mhm.
have a love of comic book art and all of that?
Yeah.
Was he
Yeah.
a comic kind of guy? Is that how you
That's
guys met?
exactly. Yeah. So Jamie had reached out to me. Jamie was just a fan of comics and the podcast. Um,
Yeah.
and he is and was a professional podcast editor in Scotland for a company,
Oh,
but
wow.
nothing to do with comic books. So he reached out to me through Twitter DM probably about a year before we hired him and said, "Hey man, I'm a huge comic fan and I love the show. You guys are like my favorite artist." And he told me Arkham Matter was just like one of his favorite Batman books. And he's like, "I just want to offer you," because he had heard us saying we really needed some help with this.
Yeah.
And he's like, "I just want to offer you my services for free. I would just be, for me, like a dream to work with you guys." And
Right.
I was like, "I appreciate that, but I would not take your services for free. It's not right."
Hmm.
But we are figuring out a path to getting there to where we can hire someone. And when we do, you're going to be the person to reach out to. And
Sweet.
like probably 9 months went by and we discussed it for a while. We're like, all right, let's just bite the bullet. We'll all chip in and we'll hire someone. So it's like, all right, I'm going to go reach out to that guy. Well, I DM'd him and then I didn't hear back. Like a week went by. And he was so excited. I was like, that's strange. So I
Yeah.
went and looked at his Twitter and it was just like, it hadn't been active for like a year. And I was like,
Hmm.
oh shit. So then I started asking people like, hey, does anyone know this guy? No one knew him. And then I was like, all right, I got to find someone. So I put out a call for editors and I got a few responses, and everyone who responded was excited about helping the Inkpulp podcast, but wasn't a real editor. Like Jamie was a professional. And
Right.
and luckily Jamie just happened to go to that old account of his and look, and he saw my DM.
Oh,
So
man.
he's like, "Oh man, I'm so glad I checked this. I don't use this account anymore." And then we hired him and everything changed.
And you guys got to bring him out and hang out with him in person recently.
Yeah, yeah. After working together for it's been what, 2.5 years, we finally met him in person. He came out for and did the Inkpulp tour with us. So what happened is comic art fans through us asked about our editor. We hooked them up, and so he works for them too.
Oh,
And
sweet.
so he was being flown out for OAX to do all the the video, like the filming and the editing.
For
and,
Mr. Kazra.
Yes, Bill and Casper.
Yes.
So we were going to be there, and that's where we were like, well, let's just, Jamie, don't fly home right after the show. Just stay and let's do a tour. And Jamie filmed an entire documentary of us on tour.
Oh, sweet.
So that should be out in a couple months, I think. Yeah, we're excited.
The Antics.
Yeah, it was good. Oh man, it was good. there were some things where like me and Matteo were in the front seat of this. I rented a giant SUV for us, and it still wasn't big enough for everything we had, but we made it work. But I drive a tiny little 2-door coupe. Like, I don't have back seats, and this thing was very uncomfortable to drive. So we were in Charlotte going out to dinner, meeting some artist friends of ours, and I'm trying to parallel park in the city.
Oh man.
And I'm looking at the space. I'm like, it's going to be tight, but I think I can do it. And so I'm squeezing in, and the car had a back camera and a front camera, and I'm looking at the computer screen, and I'm like, I'm getting nervous. I'm going to hit something. And Matteo starts yelling at me like, you're not going to hit anything. Look in the camera. Look, but the cameras distort things like an inch could be a foot. I don't know. And so like me and him went back and forth. Like, this is just how we talk. Neither of us was mad at each other. He's Italian. I'm passionate too. And he's so Jamie's like, Jim gets very uncomfortable when Matteo and I do this. Right. Jim just got out of the car. Like, he was like, I'm getting out, and got out. Yeah. And so then finally we parked, and it was fine. And it was like, all right, good, let's go. And then, but like anyone watching would think like, oh my God, these guys are pissed at each other. Without a beat, Matteo goes, Jamie, did you get that? Like, on film? Jamie's like, no, I wasn't filming. We're like, fuck. And we laughed and we went and had dinner.
So there's going to be some good behind the scenes. There's probably going to be a blooper reel. It's going to be amazing. The whole thing's a blooper reel.
Well, in All Things Podcast, it's all part of the show. We don't edit and cut out stuff. But I mean, I will say most of it is us having a good time and us like doing our signings, and it's really cool. I mean, being in a car with everyone for that long, touring, the conversations that were happening, it was great. It was just awesome.
Well, and you interact with each other digitally so much, throughout the weeks and everything. It has to be cool to just connect and be together in person every now and again.
Yeah. And I think the reason the digital side works, like the podcasting for us, is because we're such good friends before we ever were recording. So our friendships are built on being together in person for a long time. And so for us getting on camera, it's like, oh, we can actually see each other more now. That was what started the show, the video version of the show with having Matteo and Eric on the show. Was Eric was like, I miss you guys. Let's just get on and catch up. And chat. And so we got on. I was just thinking we were just going to like hang out and do some work. And Eric's like, let's just record this. And we recorded it, and we were like, oh, that's kind of the show now. Yeah. But it all started like Eric always says, like, I just wanted to have some time with my friends. So it just started out with like, let's hang out and record it, and we'll just give that out.
And you're giving away a look behind the curtain and taking away the facade that Eric has built.
Well, yeah, and that's the thing is at C2E2, so many people met Eric. I mean, now he's on Absolute Batman, so
it's hilarious.
Everyone sees him, and they're like, Eric's really a very personable, really nice friendly guy. It's like, yeah, you see the character he plays on the show. But to be fair, that it's not a character. That is Eric too. That is without a doubt Eric. Yeah. And but Eric is awesome, but he's a good dude.
I love it. And it's funny too how people don't realize how nice he is, and then they, like you said, they get to interact with him, and they've built they built everything off the character that they see. But totally. Yeah, definitely a very genuine person, and is somebody that you can tell gives back a lot to the community. Same with Matteo and you guys all really give back a lot with the up and coming aspiring creators and
Well,
everything.
I mean, all of us came up at a time pre-internet or for Mateo's case, early internet. And so what we learned about this medium and what we learned about this industry was from talking to professionals at conventions and through emails, like people just giving us time.
Yeah.
And we all learned so much. And I had a few, like I was so grateful for any creator that gave me time to teach me something or explain something to me, that I was always just so thankful. And a few creators, I want to say Phil Hester was one of them, and I think Scott McDaniel was another. And I was like, what? How can I thank you for this other than just saying thank you? Like, well, can I do something for you? And they said, just pay it forward. Like, and that's something that always stuck with me. It was like, they're right. Like, they had the same experience with the giants that came before them. And so it's not like there's this idea that this is kept knowledge. And I see a lot of people trying to hold that.
Yeah.
And it's like, this medium's bigger than us. And we're all standing on the shoulders of what came before us. So we should help lift up everyone we can too. I mean, it's just to come from like an insecure space where you just want to keep your secrets.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't serve art. It doesn't even if we go beyond comics, we just talk about art. Like I was in art history. I was learning. I mean, there's lessons every day that I run through my head from Michelangelo, from the Impressionists, from the Post-Impressionists. Like it's just, this is what art is. It builds on what came before us. And then now we can get into AI, which is a whole nother
Yeah.
subject where it's like, oh, we don't care about any of that. But that's what I love about art is its community that's bigger than the time period. It's community that stretches through history. And
It
I'm all
is.
about it.
Yeah. And it's funny because there are parallels in my profession of martial arts, because it's the same thing. People don't realize that to truly grow, you have to build those up around you so they can push you. So you have to continue getting better.
Yeah.
Like if I'm your jujitsu coach and I just smash you every time because I can,
Mm-hmm.
I should be able to do that. I don't have to grow through that. You're going to get discouraged and I'm going to stay the same.
Right.
But if I show you how I'm catching you, hey, here's how I keep getting you in that choke. You keep making this mistake and you adjust it and you start countering me. Well, I have to adapt and come up with a different way.
Right.
And then we just build and build and build. So it's and I consider martial arts art too. So it's interesting to see those parallels.
I agree. And that's something else I learned, especially from Walt Simonson. When I was in grad school at SCAD, he was a guest and he was talking, and Walt is one of those figures in the history of comics that never stops getting better. I mean, you see some artists kind of hit a peak and then they kind of dip. And you're like, as an outsider, I was like, what is that? What is that? And so we kind of asked Walt, why does he keep growing? And his answer was like, oh, I'm just a student of this, like you. So like Walt, who was up here and we were students, he just brought himself right down to our level. Mm-hmm. And I was like, oh my God, that's why he looks at meeting an artist, whether you're a professional, a student, a kid, like it's just another opportunity to learn. And not that I'm above you. And teaching, when I still teach, but teaching always made me a better artist. So I think it's a good way to be.
My buddies, Sam McClurg and Brandon Paul, were part of some of your courses that you offer, and just really have grown a lot and have nothing but great things to say. Brandon's doing his Chuck Maxwell thing and killing it. Sam's done a million stuff, Kickstarters already.
Dude, that kid's got more hustle in him than I've seen in almost anyone at that age. It's wild.
And I don't know if you know this, but he's pursuing it full time. He he ended up
Oh,
losing he got laid off and he's trying to go all in with it now.
I didn't, you didn't tell me that. Oh,
Yeah.
that's, well, good. I mean, honestly, sometimes, I mean, I try to look at everything that can be perceived as a setback as an opportunity.
Yeah.
And for some people, and this is probably the case with Sam, just getting that little extra fire under you to force you to make it work. Because having the comfort of the job, because this is what I did. I was a full-time professor and department chair at SCAD in Atlanta. And I was working for Marvel full time. I was exclusive there, and I was working for SCAD and running the department full time. And I just hit a breaking point. I was like, I can't do this, like both of these.
Right.
So negotiations came up at SCAD for my next contract, and I was like, look, I'm not asking for more money. I'm asking for time. And what I wanted was to carve some things out of my contract where they're like, we require you to be here on a Friday. If there's no classes on Friday, it's just,
Right.
they want you in your office available. I was like, look, here's the thing. If a student makes an appointment with me, I'll come in. I just don't want to come in and waste my day.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and they just wouldn't budge. And I think they thought I was bluffing. I was like, I'm going to leave, because they knew I had little kids, and they're like, yeah, he's not going anywhere. But I didn't sign. And then I remember them being like, Shawn, the contracts were due yesterday, or like, hurry up. I was like, I told you, I'm not doing it. Like, you couldn't even give me a little bit of time back. I'm out.
Yeah.
And
It's
I left. And then I remember, so luckily, like during that period of me saying I'm going to leave before the contracts are due, I happened to be going to New York. I would always take a trip to New York. I stopped going to San Diego Comic-Con because I realized that show was so big and so expensive, and the publishers were not showing up like they used to. I was like, I bet I could save money and get more work, because I used to go to San Diego and line up a year's worth of work there.
mm-hmm.
And then I was having trouble doing that. I was like, I bet if I just went to New York outside of convention season and just made appointments with editors to go have lunches and dinners, I'll line up work. And I did, and it worked beautifully. So I was on one of those trips, and I had become friendly with Mark Doyle, who at the time, when I knew him, was an assistant editor in Vertigo. And I scheduled this trip, and we scheduled a lunch. And like the day before I left, they announced Mark's promotion to head of Batman.
Oh, wow.
And so we had a lunch scheduled, and I'm friends with Sean Murphy. And Sean and Mark were good friends. So I told Sean, hey, I'm coming into New York. And this is when Sean lived in Brooklyn. I was like, I'm going to do lunch with Mark. Let's all go grab lunch. So we did. And we just had a good time. I didn't even mention work. And then I remember I got back to my hotel like a couple hours later, and I had an email from Mark saying like, that was great, great hang, but we didn't talk about work, and I want to talk to you about something. And that eventually became my Arkham Manor gig. So when I left GAD, Mark had said, I want you to do this book with Jerry Duggan, and but you're going to be a hard sell to the people upstairs because of your style, which I'm aware of. He's like, but I'm going to go to bat for you, and we're going to figure out how to get you in. And so I had done some like tests, like I did some like pinups basically of Batman that Mark could bring upstairs. And I did one, and he was like, it was in my normal style at the time, which was a little simpler. And I did the classic Batman costume. He was like, look, put him in the armor, which I hated. I was like, okay. And he's like, just put him in the armor. And I was like, all right, if I want this dress. And so then I did that, and then silence. And then the contract expired, and then school ended. And I remember I hadn't heard anything from Mark, and I was like, okay, now I'm officially unemployed. I do not have a job. I had my contract at SCAD set up to pay me through the summer, because I didn't teach in the summer, but you can have your contract pay you for the 9 months you're teaching, and you get more per check, or spread it out for the year to get less per check. I always spread it out through the year. And I remember I was at the pool with my wife, just like panicking. She's like, look, it's a beautiful day. Just relax. And don't worry, it's going to work out. And I sat down, and like literally a minute later, my phone rings and it's Mark offering me the gig. And
That's amazing.
And so I was stoked. And then the capper was, and he's like, and he said, would you mind doing the covers also? And at this point, I had done maybe 1 or 2 covers in my life. And now I'm being asked if I mind doing Batman covers. So I was like, okay, it's going to be okay. And that's what I mean. Like for someone like Sam, like just having that like safety removed from you can make shit happen.
Yeah, the safety net's gone and the feet are kind of to the fire. But I told him because he texted me when that happened, and I was like, dude, if there's anybody that can pivot and make this work, it's you, because you hustle. You were hustling when you were working another job, and you're like, sleeping 3-4 hours a night making your comics and doing the things. So, you're set up to do it. It's just a matter of like really going for it and focusing in. And he is. I mean, we do a live stream together every week, and he's always hustling his stuff and promoting, and
he's great. Yeah, I love it.
He is. Love it. Yeah. And then Brandon with Chuck, I mean, that just like came out of left field. This guy comes in fully fleshed out graphic novel, essentially, just out of the woods. It's awesome. It's so cool to see. What do you think now about the landscape we're in the comic industry? I have a lot of friends, in the industry, and kind of the prevailing topic right now is like page rates really haven't changed for a very long time. Mm-hmm. If anything, they've gone down.
They've gone down.
I saw a recent contest for a big publisher, and it's like, if you win $2,000 for a 20-page story. I'm like, oh, so they're still doing $100 a page too? Like, it's pretty crazy. Do you feel that the avenue for aspiring up and coming creator isn't so much that, because back in the day, like if you didn't get a gig at Marvel or DC, you didn't really get that recognition and get your gateway into the industry. Now the way we're set up with Kickstarter and direct to consumer and all these different things, do you think that's like become the new viable pathway into the industry?
I think it's a pathway, and I think it's the best pathway. I came into comics wanting to write and draw my own stuff. I discovered comics later in life, and I enjoyed the superhero comics. I did. I'm not going to pretend I didn't. But the comics that really spoke to me was Hellboy, Instant City, and The Max, and Spawn. It was just all these independent titles made by big name creators. Yeah. And I remember I was like, that's exactly what I want to do. So I looked at all of them and I was like, how did they get to do that? And I backtracked their path and I was like, oh, become a name at a publisher, and then someone will get behind you to publish your own work. So that's the path I pursued. And at the time, that was the way to do it. Now, there were creators going fully independent, like Dave Lapham, and early Bone, and even the Ninja, like back to the Ninja Turtles, like they went fully independent at the gate. But that, before the internet, that was a really, really hard path. Yeah. And I didn't have the means, the information, the outlets, or anything to understand that. So I looked at the other path. Now we're in a different space. And now we don't need to build up names there. If the publishers are looking to capitalize on the talents names on social media. Mm-hmm. Oh, you're hot on Instagram. Let's get you over here doing some stuff. So it's like the pendulum swaying the other direction. And now the creators have this power, but I don't think the community recognized that fully yet, but some have. And now we, through social media, through podcasting in particular, because of the internet, we have connections to publishers, printers, and we can build our own audience now, our own like fan base, our own communities, and we don't need the publishers to do that. So that excites me. And I think it's giving a lot of power to voices that someone like Marvel and DC may not have paid attention to so much. Someone like Marty King, who I think is a powerhouse of a young talent. And anyone out there, if you don't know Marty's work, Marty has created an entire line of comics called superhero comics. And he writes all of them, draws most of them. He has some artists he works with. One of them is Jonathan Marks, who is an incredible young talent. Like, just like Bill Sienkiewicz, Ashley Wood, Sam Keefe, like all that, like really organic, expressive working style. Jonathan's great. So I think we're in a very healthy creative landscape right now. It's almost like and it's like the time of the independence. But what's different now than, say, the early 80s is you've got my generation of creators who all came in wanting to do their own books, but we're just constantly chasing their own tail, trying to pay bills by working for the publishers. Some people rose out of that into like when you work for Marvel and DC, you can get into what I'll call the upper class talent. I was stuck in the middle class, where you can make some really good money. But most of us were just stuck in that middle class where you're just always taking a job to get by and you're working nonstop. So you never have time to pursue your work. But there's a lot of us now who are like, wait a minute, let me step back, because I think I can make the same amount of money, if not more, if I invest some time into building something, which is what I did with InkPulp, and what Andy Belanger and Carl Kerschel have done with Lethal, what Ramon Perez is doing with Raid. And I'm seeing a lot of like, I mean, just look at Matteo. Matteo is an artist that he could call any publisher he wanted probably right now and say, hey,
be on him.
Yeah, like this. And what has Matteo done? He's written and drawn his own book. I'm not saying he's not going back to that, but Matteo's a very smart businessman. And knows to bounce back and forth. But I just think we're at a time now where it's like we're all realizing we can do this on our own. And a lot of us have worked for Marvel and DC, so we have a little bit of popularity is probably the best word for it, or we're known to an extent, so that if we kind of like lead the way a little bit, there's this monster of talent that wants to do that, and they will just go right in. And I mean, everything at InkPulp, like what Jim and I do on the live show, it's always been about, let's expose this side of things to the world with what little bit of being known we have. And let's like, because in the end, all it's doing is making cool new comics, like really exciting stuff. And I love seeing it. So to get back to your question, that was a long roundabout way. Man. I think they're like the bigger publishers are struggling a bit. I mean, DC figured out something recently. I hope it sticks, but I have my skeptical brain.
Me too.
And I mean, it's just like with Marvel and DC, whenever they're like, oh, that worked, keep doing that. It's like, you're missing why it worked.
Yeah. And you know, as well as I do, Marvel is working on whatever their version of the Absolute line is going to be. And because that worked, right?
Right. So. To be fair, the Absolute line was, oh, Marvel's Ultimates did really well. Mm-hmm. So there's that. So, I don't begrudge them, but I think we're like, if we look beyond comics and we just look at the world in general and the arts, the corporations that devoured everything, movies, music, books, comic books, they're all struggling. And and it's given a lot of power back to the creatives. We're like, wait, do we need you? Because I think we can do this ourselves now. In the earlier days, it was like, I want to draw. I've got this script I want to make. I just don't have the means to do it. So let me get the producers and these corporations to fund it, and I'll take my cut. But now I don't think we don't need that. And also, they're like, if I look at Hollywood, and it just feels like there was a time where it was creatives and business people running the show together, and then it just became business people.
Yeah.
And then everyone's like, why are all the movies the same? Why is everything a remake? Well, because you got business people making decisions.
Yeah.
You don't have creatives making decisions.
It's the same thing you were saying about, like the big publishers, like, oh, that worked, let's do more of that.
Right.
Oh, this movie was very popular, let's make a sequel, it'll also be popular. Or let's remake this because the original was, people liked it, so they'll...
And they all, because the bigger corporations came in, like Marvel was something, but now it's Disney. And now the bigger corporations come in, they're like, okay, Spider-Man is a brand. So Spider-Man can only be this. And you've got to stick to that or you're going off brand. I grew up at a time where like, well, let's put Spider-Man in a black costume. Well, let's bring an alien into Spider-Man's universe. Like comics, what I loved about it was crazy. It was just like like Steve Ditko wasn't grounded in reality. Like it was like, let's have fun. Like Herbie, like his imagination, like the fourth world stuff, like none of that will happen now under those restrictions.
Yeah, because it'd be considered taking too big of a risk. Right.
And corporations will play it safe. So I think that's what's happening there, but I see it as healthy. I think it's really giving a lot of power back to the creatives. And like the books I'm reading, a lot of the books I read now, I'm getting off a Kickstarter.
Mm-hmm.
And the getting back to the tour, the big purpose behind the tour, well, there's two purposes. One was to spread as much awareness as possible about the campaign for Matteo's Kickstarter. That was the initial idea. And then the other aspect of it for me, and I told the fellas this, was I want us to learn how to build a bridge from independent creator to retailer. Because that's the biggest thing hurting the independent creator, is getting into the stores, getting onto the shelf. Direct distribution is not built for independent creators. Like that catalog of previews, just to get in it is going to cost you money. And independent creators aren't flush with cash. And then to get in it, you're just lost in a sea of noise. And so it's hard to get seen there. And it's hard for anyone to know what you're doing there. So the tour was built around this idea. Let's go to progressive minded shops that are doing really well right now at a time when everyone's saying this is dying. Yeah. Let's go see why they're succeeding. And let's talk to them about how can what we do, how can we both make money together and help each other? Because the common misconception, or it's not misconception, because some retailers do really think this way. The common belief is Kickstarter replaces the retailer. Right. And so a lot of retailers see it as like, you're trying to cut me out, which is very short-sighted. What I learned on this trip was, and we kind of knew this from doing Kickstarters, was the shops we went to that were really progressive minded were like, Kickstarter's a different audience. Those people aren't coming into my shop. Go to your Kickstarter. Then here's what you do. Take your books, contact us, come do an in-store signing. We will buy we'll buy a bunch of books at wholesale from you, and we'll do an in-store event, and we'll make our money. You'll make your money. You'll connect with fans. The fans will love the store even more. And that's what happened on our tour. And we were like, cool. This is incredible. And then we had some further discussions about like, okay, there's the start of a bridge. What else can we do? And now there's like, we're starting to build a real infrastructure with retailers. And I think about like one thing that we learned on this tour was, as an independent creator, most of us have newsletters. If you don't have a newsletter, you should have a newsletter. But what the retailers are telling us was have a retailer exclusive newsletter. Talk to us once a month. Let us know what's going on in your world. Let's develop a relationship. And the retailers were like, one retailer specific was like, we are risk takers. That's why we succeed. We're not afraid to take a risk. And so if we get behind something, there are other retailers who aren't as much of a risk takers who, when they see us get behind it, they'll get behind it. And so it just starts to grow from there. So it was eye-opening. And I realized, like, I've spent so long in this industry, just being an employee of a company, drawing what they tell me to draw. At the same time, I don't know anything about this side of the industry.
Yeah.
And that's hurting us.
And those, the retailers are the ones that keep all of this alive. So if nobody's maintaining that connection, I mean, it's no wonder that it's no wonder that my whole life I've been told the comic book industry is dying if nobody is actually interacting with those people and finding out what, how can we help each other versus just looking at them as something that doesn't, pertain to what you're doing.
Right. And look, it goes both ways, because I'm guilty of this myself. I will admit it. I was at a point where I was like, what do I need retailers for? I'll find my audience and sell directly to them. And then getting on this tour and sitting down with them, I was like, you guys are awesome. And the big thing I learned was, and the reason InkPulp succeeds is because of community. And the reason these stores are succeeding is because of community. And I think, and I've been saying this for a long time now, I saw the erosion of community, not just in comics, but in life. I grew up in a neighborhood where I'd get home from school, I'd just go out and play. And when it was dinner time, my mom would just shout, Shawn, dinner time, come home. And the neighbor would hear that and be like, oh, Shawn's down there. Shawn, your mom's calling you. Like,
we're from the same generation, brother.
Yeah. So it was community. And now my kids grew up in a neighborhood, they didn't know their neighbors. Yeah. And I think most people don't. So it was probably during the InkPulp audio days, I was like, we're losing community. This is not good for us. But now I think we're seeing a return to community. And I'm really, really excited and hopeful for that.
I love it. Well, I wanted to rewind a little bit. And you mentioned that you got into comics a little later than some, because for a lot of people, that childhood love of comics, or, for some generations, it was the cartoons that got them into the comics and all of this. But for you, was it kind of art has always been something you're into?
Absolutely.
And then did the appreciation of art lead to your appreciation and love of comics?
You just nailed my story. I always loved to draw. My first love in drawing was dinosaurs. My second love in drawing was shark. And I loved learning about these and drawing them. Mm-hmm. And then I discovered cartoons. And the Spider-Man cartoon from our childhood was like the best drug I've ever had in my life. I mean, I here I am at 8 years old, waking up at 6:30 on a Saturday morning so I can watch this. Every week was a new villain. I didn't know anything about Spider-Man. I was just so excited.
And Shawn, people don't understand this. In those days, once it had aired and it was gone,
done.
It wasn't go pop on your on-demand and pull up the replay. It was like, you missed it.
Yeah, like I remember I saw an Electro episode. I was like, oh my God, that was the best thing I've ever seen. Electro is the coolest thing ever. And then I had to wait like months for them to rerun that to see it again. So I was, I loved it. But so in my mind, I was like, that's what I want to do. I want to animate. And then I discovered Disney and I see this beautiful hand-drawn animation. I'm like, yeah, that's what I want to do. I want to work in animation. I want to use my drawings to tell stories. And when I was 15, maybe I was 14, I was in high school. And I knew what a comic book was, but I'd never read it. And I was just drawing, and I was really into graffiti. Like once hip hop came, like everything was graffiti for me. And I was into skateboarding big time. So I always was drawing, either graffiti stuff or skateboarding stuff. And there's a kid in my class who was like, asked me if I read comics. I was like, nah. I didn't know anything about them. I just assumed they were just dorky and whatever.
Yeah.
And he was like, I'm going to give you something. I want you to read it. I was like, all right. And I was a reader. Like I liked books. Mm-hmm. And Stephen King was like my favorite growing up. I like Clive Barker and Stephen King. and he gave me a trade of The Dark Knight Returns, and I had never read a comic. And I
Yeah.
looked on the back, and there's a Stephen King pull quote. I was like, whoa. So
Yeah,
that gave some legitimacy to me, what I was holding. I was like,
for
and
sure.
what he said was deep. I was like, all right, I'm gonna read this. And I read it. I couldn't put it down.
Oh
I was
yeah.
like, oh my God, what just happened? Like at this time, like all I could do is watch RoboCop over and over and over and over.
Yeah.
And here I am reading a book that is like giving me that same feeling. And I was like, this is amazing. I want to get into this. And I remember I was skateboarding after school one day, and we always stopped where I grew up. It's like a 7-Eleven, but it was called Hyde's.
Okay.
And there was a spinner rack.
We
I
had
was like,
Circle K.
Yeah, I remember Circle. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And that
down
was
here.
riding, it was riding, even though I skateboarded or I attempted to skateboard, it was riding my bike to the Circle K to look on the spinner rack.
Yeah. So I was like, let me just look. And the first thing I saw was Todd McFarlane Amazing Spider-Man. And if it,
Oh,
like,
yeah.
there's no 15-year-old boy that you can show Todd McFarlane to that's not going to be like, hey.
Dude, exactly.
So like, that was it. I was like, Todd McFarlane. And then of course I knew Frank Miller from Dark Knight Returns. I was like, this is awesome. So now I just start digging. Now I'm like, my friend's like, let's go to a comic shop. I'm like, what is that? And then he takes me to my first comic shop, and now I'm just buying shit. I'm trying everything, and I'm buying it. But anything with Frank Miller's name, I'm getting it. And I got the Born Again collection, Batman Year One collection, and I start reading monthly floppies, and this is now things are getting exciting at Marvel for me. You've got Jim Lee, Mark Silvestri, Todd McFarlane, Chris Claremont's X-Men run. Then Alan Davis to me was just like mind blowing.
Legendary. Yeah.
Yeah. And the Simonsons were starting X Factor. I got into that. And so then I was like, okay, I'm loving this. And then I remember I went and saw a movie with my friend. It was 4th of July weekend. And we went and saw The Untouchables by Brian De Palma.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like the first time I was like aware of a director's presence. It was like the first time I was like, wait a minute. I kind of see that like a director is like making me feel things and making me react to things. And I was like, huh. And then I started thinking about Dark Knight Returns. I was like, oh, that did that too. And at the same time, I'm learning more about animation. And I'm like, I don't know who drew that frame I'm looking at, because everyone's homogenized in this soup of making an animated film. And I was like, I don't want to be invisible as an artist. I was like, movies, comic books. Yeah, I want to tell stories, but I want people to see me in the story. So I was like, comic books became my everything. And I just went full in.
That was the obsession. And did that lead to the beginnings of the idea that would be the area you were going to kind of focus in on?
Yeah,
art-wise?
that was it. I was like, this is all I'm doing with my life. Yeah, before I got out of high school, I mean, like if I discovered comics at 14 and a half, at 15 and a half, I was like, this is what I'm doing with my life. Like, this is it. I don't want to do anything else. And I stopped pursuing anything else. I remember like applying to colleges, like my parents didn't know what to do with me. Because they're like, well, she wants to be an artist, but you can't like make a life into that. Like graphic design? I'm like, no, I want to do comic books. And they're like, you want to go work for Disney? I'm like, no, that was young me. And I love those little things.
That's awesome.
And so they were like, illustration? I was like, yeah. They're like, I don't know what that means. So what I was doing, because there was no programs to study comics and there was no internet to ask anybody anything. And I didn't know I didn't even know there was such thing as a comic convention. I had no idea.
I remember the dream was to try to go to the Kubert school back in the day. That was like the only.
Yeah, I didn't even know about that.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't know anything. Or I mean, maybe they were advertising at the time, but they weren't accredited. So it wasn't even an option. I don't remember. But I remember like I found a school with a nice, like I was applying to schools where the illustration program looked strong. And I was also looking at their film program, because in my mind, that's if I study film and I study illustration, I can figure out comics. But I still didn't know like what storytelling meant. I still didn't know what page layout meant. I thought just draw a bunch of cool pictures and it will tell a story by itself. So I really had no idea what I was doing, but I ended up at a school where I majored in illustration, minored in film, and minored in creative writing. So I was like, I felt like I could piece this together. And luckily, and this is crazy kismet. My second year in college, I had a professor for, I want to say it was a watercolor class. I'm pretty sure it was a watercolor class. And I had this professor walk in whose name was Jose Villarrubia. And I always was drawing comic stuff. So like I get there early one day and I'm drawing most likely a Spider-Man, like a McFarlane Spider-Man. And Jose comes in and he looks, he's like, "Oh, do you like comic books?" I was like, "Yeah." And he was like, "Oh," he's like, "I work in comic books." I had never met anyone that worked in comic books. And he was just starting his career as a color artist.
Oh, wow.
And he exposed me to like I had read Arkham Asylum, but he took me on a deeper dive to some like more artists, like finer artists in the comics world. Like I had seen Bill Sienkiewicz, but he like exposed me to Bill Sienkiewicz and a lot of those type of artists. So Jose had a real big impact on me. And also it like I remember calling my parents, I was like, "See, there's someone here that works in comics." And they're like, "Yeah, he's a teacher. So be a teacher." And it's kind of what I did. Right. But this, so, and then getting out of school, is when I discovered Comic-Cons. Like I went to a small, like hotel lobby convention and saw what that was like and met some like older professionals who weren't working so much anymore, but wasn't meeting any of my heroes or anyone currently working. And after I graduated, I was watching Sci-Fi Network and it was like San Diego Comic-Con, a commercial. And it was a small show. Like it was very much a small show back then.
Very different than what it is now.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Like night and day. Like even the small shows now look bigger than Comic. Like, like Heroes Con is bigger than San Diego was when I went by a lot. So I went to my first Comic-Con expecting like, I'm going to get jobs, and came back with humble pie. But I had some really kind editors like look at my portfolio and say, "You've got something here. I don't know what's going on. You don't know how to tell a story." And they gave me some guidance. They recommended Scott McCloud's book and Will Eisner's text. And when I read those, I was like, "Oh, I have no idea what I'm doing."
Fundamental storytelling. Yeah.
So
were you taking them a bunch of pinups and things like that, or did you have some storytelling in there?
I was doing pages, but nobody could follow. Like I was just like, "Here's a cool idea for a drawing," and I'll put another one next to it. But I was taking like, if like a good storyteller's taking leaps this big between panels, I was jumping from here like off screen between panels. They're like, "What just happened?" Like, "Oh, you don't get it? Like this happened." Well, I don't know how that happened.
Right.
So, I mean, I was doing panels, but I wasn't telling the story.
Now, what was the first big break for you? I know you did some like early work for WildStorm, like in the early 2000s and stuff. Was that kind of the first?
Yeah. Well, let me back up real quick and say,
bigger gig.
Yeah. Let me just say, so my sample pages I did for my first Comic-Con for San Diego, I did The Mask. And I did Grendel, and there was one other, I don't remember what it was, but none of them were Marvel DC. Again, just showing where I wanted to go. Right. And then you just asked, my very first gig was for WildStorm. I didn't do anything small, independent before that, nothing. I was in grad school at the time, studying hard and hustling my ass off to network. And I went to MegaCon in Orlando way before Reed Pop, Fan Expo had it. And I met Lee Bermejo at the time, who was a new young artist whose work I liked. And I like to go to talk to artists I liked and like kind of pick their brain. So I met Lee and we both were just like gushing over Kevin Nolan, and I left him a sample pack of pages. And I met John Layman, who was an editor at WildStorm, left him a sample pack. And after that weekend, Lee at the time was drawing this Resident Evil miniseries called Fire and Ice. And then they offered him the Superman Gen 13 book.
I remember that. Yeah.
And so he left Fire and Ice like after issue 1. And the editors were like, what? I mean, it was a good career move. Lee did the right thing. But now they're left with like, well, now we have to find someone that looks like Lee and we can put them on the book. Now, I don't think I ever looked like Lee, but we definitely had a shared aesthetic. And that shared aesthetic was very much Kevin Nolan. And so I get a call one day out of the blue. Jeff Marriott from WildStorm left a voicemail like, hey, Shawn, I want to talk to you about a potential opportunity. I was like, oh my God. So like I had to calm myself down and make the call. And he's like, you know, I had Lieber Mayo on this book and he quit. And he's like, I'm trying to find an artist. And Lee recommends some guy I've never heard of named Shawn Crystal. And then later, John Layman comes in my office and he recommends some guy I never heard of named Shawn Crystal. So he's like, apparently you're somebody I need to know.
Right.
And that's a good hustle. Like, I didn't do anything but hustle hard and luck fell in my lap. Like I just got lucky. Like I hit 2 people that walked in the office on the same day and recommended me, not even speaking to each other about it. And so he gave me a tryout. I remember John Lucas got a tryout. This is before I knew John. And later we realized we both tried out for that book. And I was the one that got it. And so I was in school full time and I was getting my master's degree at SCAD in Savannah. And I got offered the job and I went and talked to, and the first thing I did was try to talk them out of giving it to me. That's how nervous I was. Yeah. I was like, I don't know. I'm in school. I'm not the right guy for you. Like, you probably need this a lot faster than I can do it. I've never worked before. He's like, I don't care how long you take. He's like, I will build a schedule. I just need to know it'll get done. And I need to know when it'll get done. And I was like, okay. He's like, you're the guy. I need you for this. I was like, okay, I'll do it. And he was like, look, for the first issue, I'm going to give you, and I was just penciling, I'm going to give you 2 days to pencil each page. And I was like, okay. And I had done enough pages in school at the time where I was like, that's a lot of work, but I can do that.
Right.
And I remember I went and spoke to my professors and I was like, look, this happened. I had some really cool professors that were like, ignore your homework, just do that. And then I had a couple of professors who were not cool. Were like, I don't care. You have homework to do. So I was like, all right, I caught a break in some areas, not in all areas. And I made it work. And of course, after the first issue, I was faster. And by the end, I was penciling a page in a day to like a day and a few hours. And yeah, but then after that, I was like, I was about to graduate. I was like, I've made it. And I had networked a lot. So people knew who I was in the industry, but I didn't get a second job for 10 years after that.
Wow.
Yeah.
So there was quite the little break in between. What did you do at that time? Is this when you started pursuing teaching? And
yeah, well, I mean, I was always, pursuing teaching was always the plan. And even as I was finishing up my Resident Evil job, I knew graduation was coming. I was putting together my teaching applications.
Okay.
Because in my mind, I was like, I can teach and do comics. Like that's a good life. So comics was a 10-year gap. Getting a teaching job was hard. And I remember it took me probably a couple of years to get a part-time teaching job in Atlanta, which made me move. But I was still going to cons regularly. I was doing sample pages constantly, and I was just banging on everyone's door. This was at a time where I have a bit of a cartoony style, and Joe Quesada had put down a mandate at Marvel, no more cartoony. We want
that
ultra realism. Like I remember an editor telling me like, I could give you work if this was 3 months ago, but now I can't. And I was like, I don't understand. Like Joe Quesada's cartoony. Like I loved his stuff on Azrael and Ash. Like,
Yeah, I did too. That's funny that he would, he of all people would kind of put that mandate out.
well, I mean, it's silly, but at the same time, the business decision I almost understand, because what he did was he forged the way for the Marvel Cinematic Universe. He wanted comics to look like movies so they could make movies.
Yeah.
And that's where the Ultimates was born out of. So,
Yeah, that
but
makes sense.
yeah, but it doesn't mean like it all has to be that. But, and I
Yeah.
remember he was also the one that said, we're going to build 3D models of the entire Marvel universe. So if you get a Fantastic Four gig, you can get the Four Tower right there. Just
Yeah.
trace it.
That's
And
because he was one of the first guys that was using Google SketchUp in his workflow for all his
exactly.
backgrounds and
And I
stuff.
hated SketchUp because,
Yeah.
well, I hate anything that takes away from the process of creating and makes it a shortcut. Because now you've removed the opportunity to learn. And you've
Yeah.
also now homogenized the look of comics. Like, I remember seeing people doing it, and like artists I liked, when I saw them use SketchUp, I was like, well, now that background just looks like everybody's background.
Exactly.
I always liked the Mike Mignola book because those backgrounds don't look like anything I've ever seen. And now
Well,
I'm
because
entering,
you're not copying reality. Like
right, you're
you're
translating
taking
it.
creative liberties and in translating it into your own style and in it's world building. Like,
Yeah,
yeah,
exactly.
if you have a scene where it's supposed to be in New York or something, you have to have some recognizable elements of that architecture, but you can also take liberties and make it your own, and that's what makes comics fun. Like if I
Right.
wanted to look at pictures of architecture, I would look at architecture picture books.
But
Like,
yeah, it's like I enter a comic book to enter a world I've never been to, and that's the
yeah,
artist's world. Like Mignola's world doesn't look like a world I've ever seen, and I like to go into that world and read in there. And
yeah,
Frank Miller's Gotham is what's not keeps
it's
Frank
all good.
Miller's Gotham is nothing I've ever seen before. I know it's like a New York City, but it looks different and it feels different, and that's where I want to go. And even in movies, they kind of realize that when they do Gotham, like the Robert Pattinson Gotham looks so different than the Christopher Nolan Gotham,
Yeah, it really did.
and so I just the more comics became homogenized, like at these publishers, like this is the heartbreaking. Like, so it was a tough time to try to break in, and this was also, I remember when I was first trying to break in out of undergrad was right when the boom of the '90s collapsed, and I remember when I went to that first San Diego Comic-Con, I heard so many times like, "Kid, this is all about to be over." And I was just like, I don't know. I didn't want to hear that. So I chose not to believe that. I had no
Right.
reason not to believe it, but I also didn't know enough to know if they were right or wrong. So so trying to break in then. And then I was like, but I was still going to cons and meeting so many people. And there was a lot, like the people I came up with are now, a lot of them are giants. I mean, I met Tony Moore, Jason Latour, Chris Brunner, Nick Dragata. Like this was my crew of trying to break in together, and they went on to crush it. But we were all like trying to find any way in, and it was nearly impossible. And a lot of people at that time went to Image, and that was like kind of the rebirth of Image. I mean, Tony did The Walking Dead. Even before that, he was doing Battle Pope. And I remember like Clay Moore, another friend that we were all like, we had writers we were trying to break in with, and artists, and like Jeremy Hahn and Clay Moore and Dennis
Jeremy,
Hopeless.
that's awesome.
Yeah. And so we were
Yeah.
all at cons together constantly, and like be like, dude, this editor's like, he's got some work. Like he looked at my portfolio, he said he might have some for me. Then we all rushed over to that editor, and it was a hustle, man. But at the same time, I'm teaching. And I have a baby, and it was tough. And I'm just like, I'm putting together pitches with independent writers to do Image stuff. I did short stories. I created properties with writers. I would get I got a pinup at DC. I got little things here and there. And then SCAD opened a campus in Atlanta, and I applied and I got the job. Me and my my friend Pat Quinn, and we kind of built the department in Atlanta. And then he got promoted up to dean very early, and I got pushed up to chair. I was chair of the sequential art department, and I was the sequential art department. And then we started to bring in some part-time faculty, and we grew it. But so it was a very demanding time demanding job. But we were building something, and I found in life, when I'm building something, I'm really good. Like I like to be in that space. But I never stopped with comics. I was like, I'm building this, and I'm going to build a comics career. And I started bringing in guests to lecture. We had a thing called Editors Day where editors came in, and then we had a thing called Comic Artist Forum where artists came in. And I remember I'd become friendly with Axel Alonso just from going to cons. And we never talked about work. It was always like I connected with him. I remember he was a guest in Savannah, and we were a small department in Atlanta. So we took our students down to Savannah for the weekend to do workshops with these editors. And of course we were with them, and Axel and I discovered we both have a deep love for hip hop. So we just spent the whole weekend talking about hip hop. And I remember I was at a dinner, and Sanford Green was a guest artist.
Sanford's amazing.
I had really long hair and my beard. My kids, all my students called me Sexy Jesus. and I remember we were at this dinner, and it was just like in the back corner was me, Sanford, and Axel. And Axel and Sanford are having this discussion about hip hop, and Sanford doesn't know me at all.
Right.
And so they're talking about best producer, and Sanford's going on and on about Ninth Wonder. And I was like, well, it's a little early to give Ninth Wonder the crown like that. And then I start dropping producers, and I'm like, DJ Premier really deserves the crown, but Pete Rock, and he just like, I remember him looking at me like a deer in headlights, like, what is happening? Who is this guy? Because my knowledge is deep. And he was just like, he didn't know what was happening. And so Axel and I became very good friends, and I was just always sending him music. And he came down to SCAD, and when we went to Savannah that weekend, his son was the same age as my daughter. So we spent a lot of time as families together, and I have pictures of my daughter and his son in diapers, like playing together, and they've basically grown up together. And we were in New York last summer, me and my daughter, and we had dinner with Axel and his son, and it was like, you guys have known each other your whole life. But I remember after he came to SCAD Atlanta a few times. It was probably after the first or second time he called me, and I never asked him for work. I was like, I was just done being that guy. Like I was tired of like always being like, I felt like people looked at me like, oh no, here comes Shawn asking for work. So I was just like, I just like talking to this guy. I'm not going to ask him for work. He called me. He's like, look, I like what you're doing. I want to put you on something. I just have to find the right thing. It was almost like he was apologizing to me for not having given me work. I was like, right. Like, we're good. Like, I'm not asking for anything. He's like, no, I'm looking. And like a week later, he's like, Deadpool, the like new series of Deadpool come out. Like #1 was a hit. It was the Daniel Way book. And he was like, we're going to do an annual, and I think it'd be perfect for you. And so that got me into Marvel. And then I was busy, and it never stopped. The work never stopped for about 10 years at that point.
What I find interesting is that a lot of these instances of you getting these big gigs are correlated with, like you said, you were just relationship building, because I get a sense you're a very genuine person, and like you weren't asking for work, you weren't looking for work, you were just building these friendships and these relationships, and it just so happened to turn into these things, like with the Arkham Manor, and then this. You weren't really looking for it, but
that was learned, because I was that guy. Like, hey, can I get a job? And like, what an awkward question to ask someone who doesn't want to give you a job or can't give you a job. Like, they don't want to be the person to like crush you. Some editors liked being that person, but most didn't. And also, everyone's coming at them. You're just another one of them. So then I was like, this is not the way to go, Shawn. You know, and I was like, so I'm just going to stop. I'm going to just let my work speak for itself. And I'm going to just try to like hang out with people I like and have a good time.
Yeah. Well, it seems to have served you well.
Thank you. Thank you.
And I have taken up over an hour of your time already, man. I
Well,
mean, we've
as you
been,
see, I can talk.
oh, it's great. And we have been trying to make this happen for a while, and we got it. And as we wrap up, I kind of wanted to ask you, like, it currently, we went back to the beginning. We were kind of talking about these creators like Walt, Simonson, who's continued to evolve and push himself and gosh, just continue to get better as an artist over the years because of his approach and always having the student's mind. For you, it's kind of more recent. You've gotten into doing like tattoo work and everything too, and like pushing yourself into a different area. So what kind of sparked that off for you and got you down that path?
Well, I mean, obviously I like tattoos, and I've always liked the art form of tattooing. And in the 90s, that was the boom of tattooing. So I remember thinking, like, when I was trying to get into comics, I was like, how can I make money with art? I was like, I bet I could just make Flash. Like, people just go around selling Flash. And I tried a little bit. I never got anywhere with it. So there was always this idea in my head, like, I'd like to stick my toe in that world. But it was fairly recently. It was probably about 7 years ago. I was getting my chest tattooed by Russ Abbott, who's a very big name in the world of tattooing. And Russ and I had become friendly. And he's tattooing me. He says, what do I got to do to get you in here? Like, I was already working for Marvel. In fact, I put Russ in a Marvel comic. In the Illuminati, the black ant character who's half robot is getting tattooed. And so I made the tattoo artist Russ. And I made the shop Ink and Dagger, which is Russ's shop. So when he asked me that, I was at a time where, like, I had been grinding in comics for 15 years and was just like, I had no savings account, every check to check, like struggling still. And I was like, and I saw the kind of money they were making, and I liked the art form. I was like, oh, well, just show me how to do it, and I can dedicate some time to this. So that kind of opened the door. That apprenticeship ended up not really going anywhere. It was kind of a big waste of time, but except for one thing, it introduced me to Eddie Stacy, who was an artist in the shop at the time. And Eddie was one of the few artists that drew, like, really got down in his sketchbook, and all of his tattoos were hand drawn and were not just like printed out and traced. And so me and him connected really well. And he was a big fan of what I was doing. I was a big fan of what he was doing. He loved that I was working in comics. Eddie had a background working in the skateboarding industry. He was the art director at Osiris. So Eddie came to me, and Eddie was also the one always standing up for me at the shop, like telling Russ, like, what are you doing? Like, get him tattooing. He's like, you have a Batman artist. What are you doing?
Yeah.
And so I just hit a point where I was like, Russ, I can't keep doing this. I'm giving you time that I don't have to give, and I'm not getting anywhere. So I was out. And Eddie and I remained friends. And Eddie said to me, he's like, look, in about 2-3 years, I'm going to get out of here. I'm going to open a shop, just me and you. I'm going to get you up and running as fast as we can, and you'll tattoo. And I was like, okay, cool. That's awesome. And to his word, that's exactly what he did.
Wow.
And so that kind of opened the door for me. And I don't know what it is with me. I will throw myself into something that excites me and not really think it through to the level, like, when I'm not, because I know I'll throw myself in it and I'll throw myself into the deep end of the pool and I'll learn to swim. And so that's kind of how I operate. So I threw myself in it, not really I don't have expectations. I've learned to stop doing that, because I was always letting myself down. So I was like, I expected at a point I'll be making good money at this. And this is also at a time where, like, comics had dried up pretty much before COVID for me. And I was like, I am tired of giving all of my power to other people. Like, my livelihood depended on someone else giving me a job after job after job. And I was like, I'm tired of that. So I need to build a path where that doesn't happen anymore. And that was a year before COVID hit. So I was at the bottom, I mean, I couldn't find work. I reached out to everyone I knew, and editors I'd worked with for years wouldn't even return an email to just say, hey, man, I don't have anything. And I was like, I'm just being hung out to dry. Writers I knew that I helped break in are now just turning their backs on me. I was like, okay, I got to figure something out, because I had no money coming in. And that's when I was like, all right, I'm going to lean into original art sales. I'm just going to start doing a lot of conventions and making a lot of drawings and selling them at the show. And I was like, I'm going to build something called InkPulp Instruction, where I can sell videos that teach you how to do it. So I had this 5-year plan of building all these things.
Yeah.
And I'm on the road of building it. And one of them was the podcast. And I'm on the road to building it. And then COVID hits and publishing shuts down. So now everyone is entering the headspace I was in a year ago, but I'm on a path. So COVID for me was buckle down and hustle mode. Like, keep building this. There's no reason for this to stop you. I'm in this studio. It's not my house. This building is owned by a woman who's great, and the offices are all filled. But during COVID, I was the only one in here. She would come in too, just the two of us.
Yeah.
So I would come in here every day. And that's when this was before the podcast version now, but we started doing live drawing streams. I started doing I learned to paint. I was like, I'm just going to learn to paint now, because my art dealer at Essential Sequential started these like stream cons, like where we would just hang out all day and draw and take commissions. I was like, I'm going to learn to paint, and I'm going to do painted commissions. And so all of that happened, and COVID ended, and I built a lot. And that 5-year plan came to a head it ended last year, and everything's kind of working out. And tattooing was part of that plan, to get back to the original question. I was like, I'll be tattooing. So here I am now. What I didn't expect was that I would step into tattooing and I would be so out of my depth, because I do have all this art knowledge, and I do have all this hand knowledge, but I don't have knowledge on the medium, the machine, skin. I don't know anything about that. So the best thing that happened to me was, and it reminded me of when I was back, when discovering comics, and I was in grad school, and I would just spend all day like looking at art and picking apart at it and be like, okay, what does that mean? Why do you do that? And like all that learning that was going on, that as you get better and better, that like learning receptacle never goes away. It just gets smaller, because you get very comfortable and you're like, I know what I want and I know how to do it now. I just need to get better at that. When you first start, you're like, I don't know what I want, but I need to learn. I need to find it. Getting into tattooing took my learning center and brought it back out. So now my comics work is getting better. My painted illustration work is getting better. Everything is growing at a much better rate now because of it. And I'll end on this. I know I'm keeping you too long.
Good, buddy.
If any artist who gets like comfortable, maybe comfortable is the wrong word, when you establish yourself at something and that's your career and you're doing it day in and day out. I'm not saying it's comfortable, but when you're in that space, the best thing you can do for your art is not stop, but just add something, go do something new. If you're an illustrator, start sculpting. If you're a sculptor, start writing. Like, just do something creative that's totally different than what you know. Yeah. And it's going to make everything in your life grow.
Yeah, 100%. And something you're not like good at, like something you can be new at.
Yeah.
Like for me, I got into arm wrestling during the pandemic, and it's wow. I've been doing jujitsu and I've been doing martial arts. Next year will be 30. Gosh, no. Next year will be 40 years of martial arts.
Oh, are you serious?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So next year, I'm deep into it, and I'm always learning new things and approaching it with that child's mind and evolving. But you get to the point where you have a frame of reference and you can compare like, oh, this move is similar to this. It's very rare for something to be 100% new to you when you've been doing it as long as I have.
Yeah. Now imagine
arm wrestling.
Yeah, exactly.
Arm wrestling, I'm like, a white belt. I'm like a new person that doesn't know anything when I started. And it's so refreshing, but you do see, I've seen all the parallels, and it has made other areas grow that aren't related to arm wrestling.
Yeah.
Because there's commonalities, parallels, like jujitsu is angles, frames, leverage. Arm wrestling is angles, frame, leverage. Like it's so cool.
That's awesome.
But it's like you're saying, like being completely doing something different that's creative can make you grow in all different areas of your life.
Yeah. Did you find that it kind of freed the pressure of the thing you originally focused on? Like to me, the pressure of like what I expected from my comics just kind of like depressurized. I was like, oh, I can try this. And whatever happens, happens. Like it's all good.
Yeah, and for me, it was like competing in arm wrestling was so refreshing because I don't look at it like a real fight, like competing in jujitsu. So like I'm so relaxed when I compete in an arm wrestling competition.
Yeah,
like I don't have any. I'm like, oh, it's not. This isn't real fighting, so I'm good.
Yeah,
like, it's more relaxed.
Yeah, tattooing's the same way for me. I'm like, I'm new at this, so I'm not going to be great at this, but I'm enjoying it, and I'm pretty good at it for how short of time period I've been doing it. So that's awesome. It's cool. Yeah, it's just
I love it, man. Well, I could keep you on here for hours. I definitely would like to have you on again because there's so many different things that we have so much commonality in our love of McFarlane and stuff. That's a whole other rabbit hole we could probably go down.
Well, yeah, you're definitely going to have me back because I'm doing a lot for Spawn now. Nice. And there's one thing I pitched to them that they accepted, and I'm very excited about.
I'm excited for you. Let's make sure to have you on again when you can talk more about that too.
For sure.
But before we leave, what do you have going on right now that you would like to let everybody know about on here? And on top of that, let everybody know the best places to keep track of you online so they can make sure to stay up to date with what you're doing.
Awesome. So the most important thing is get on my newsletter. InkPulp.tv. If you just go to my website, a pop-up window will pop up to get on my newsletter. I am at InkPulp on every platform I'm on, YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, whatever. It's at InkPulp. And if you're interested in getting tattooed by me, just go to my website or hit me up, inkpulp@gmail. The shop I'm in is Black Marker. So you can go to theblackmarker.com and sign up there. I've got a lot of cool covers. I'm really focused on doing covers right now because it keeps me on the shelf while I'm starting to work on my creator-owned books. So I've got some cool covers coming up. I got a Dork cover I'm about to start. Most of the covers are going to be in the Spawn universe, so look for that.
Hell yeah, brother. Man, I had a great time, Shawn. Thanks so much for making the time to come on.
Oh, dude, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
Awesome. All right. Well, hang out with me for a moment. I want to direct everybody over to patreon.com/Nerdy Mewzings. I'm actually getting it up and rolling. Have a lot of free content, a lot of exclusive for free members on there right now. So make sure you guys head over there. I greatly appreciate everybody that tunes in. I have so much fun doing this and bringing all these awesome conversations to you guys. If you're enjoying them, please feel free to like, subscribe, share with a friend, and in the meantime, everybody, keep it nerdy.